It is 4 o'clock in the morning. The city is dark. The streets are empty. The rest of the world is asleep, wrapped in warmth, lost in dreams, completely unaware that somewhere in a gymnasium, under cold fluorescent lights, a man is already working, not because he feels like it, not because he is motivated, not because the crowd is watching, or the cameras are rolling, or anyone is there to witness what is happening. He is working because that is what he does, every day, without exception, without negotiation, without waiting for the feeling to arrive. While you were sleeping, he was shooting free throws. While you were comfortable, he was conditioning his body past the point where his mind was telling him to stop. While the world was resting, he was building the version of himself that the world would one day call impossible. His name was Kobe Bryant, and what he understood about discipline and what he lived inside discipline every single day of his extraordinary life is not just the secret to athletic greatness. It is the secret to everything. This video is about what separates the people who dream from the people who build, what separates the motivated from the disciplined, what separates the person you are right now from the person you have always known you were capable of becoming. Picture a 13-year-old boy in Italy. His father, Joe Bryant, is playing professional basketball in the Italian leagues, and the family has relocated from Philadelphia to a world where everything is unfamiliar. The language is different. The culture is different. The faces on the street are different. And this boy, skinny, restless, burning with something he cannot yet fully name, is spending his afternoons on Italian basketball courts, playing against grown men who are faster, stronger, and more experienced than him in every measurable way. He loses repeatedly, comprehensively. Some days the losses are humiliating. Some days the older players do not even take him seriously enough to guard him closely, because why would you waste energy on a child? But something is happening in this boy that the men on those Italian courts cannot see. Something that will take years to fully surface, but that is being forged in those losses, in that embarrassment, in that daily experience of being the smallest and the least and the most overlooked. He is learning to work, not in the way that most people learn to work, putting in effort when effort is required, showing up when showing up is expected, trying hard when the stakes are visible. He is learning something far more rare and far more powerful. He is learning to work when nobody is watching. He is learning to work when the result is invisible. He is learning to work as a practice, as a daily religion, and as the unconditional commitment of a person who has decided that the gap between where he is and where he intends to be will be closed by one thing and one thing only, not talent, not luck, not circumstances, repetition. That 13-year-old boy would go on to become one of the greatest basketball players who ever lived, an 18-time All-Star, a 5-time NBA champion, a man whose name became synonymous not with talent, but with work. His name was Kobe Bryant, and the story of his life is not really a story about basketball at all. It is a story about what a human being can become when they choose discipline over everything else. But the story, the full story, does not begin with the championships. It does not begin with the crowds and the rings and the global adoration that would eventually come. It begins with the pain. When Kobe entered the NBA straight out of high school in 1996, he was 17 years old. He was gifted in ways that were already obvious to everyone who watched him. The physical tools were exceptional. The skill was undeniable. The potential was stratospheric. And he was completely, brutally, publicly exposed. The 1997 All-Star Weekend Slam Dunk Contest. A moment that should have been a showcase. A moment that turned into something far harder. He lost. And around the league, in locker rooms, in front offices, among coaches and veterans, the whispers started that he was young, that he was raw, that the potential did not equal the readiness, that maybe the hype had outrun the reality. Then came the 1997 playoffs. The Los Angeles Lakers against the Utah Jazz. The game is close. The stakes are enormous. And Kobe, this teenager who believed in himself more than the evidence, at that moment justified, shoots 4 airballs in the fourth. Quarter 4 airballs, not misses, not close shots that rimmed out. Airballs, shots that did not come close to touching the basket, in the most important moments of the biggest game of his young career. The ridicule was immediate. The criticism was loud. 17 years old on the biggest stage in professional basketball. And the lasting image of that night was a teenager shooting into empty air while the game slipped away. Most people would have let that moment define them. Most people, young, embarrassed, publicly humiliated, before millions of watching eyes, would have retreated into self-protection, would have played it safer, would have let the wound harden into a scar that limited what they were willing to risk again. Kobe Bryant did something different. He went back to the gym. Not the next week, not after the off-season, the next day, before sunrise, before anyone else arrived, before the world had even finished processing what had happened the night before. He was already in the gym alone, shooting the same shots, not motivated, not inspired, not riding a wave of emotional fuel, disciplined. And this is the line in the sand. This is the moment where the story of Kobe Bryant diverges from the story of everyone who had his talent, but not his discipline. This is the moment that explains everything that followed. Because motivation would have eventually brought him back to the gym. Motivation would have brought most people back, given enough time and enough pain and enough desire to redeem the embarrassment. But discipline brought him back the next morning, and the morning after that, and the morning after that, for 20 years. The turning point in Kobe's journey was not a single game or a single championship. It was a decision that he made so early and held so completely that it became not a choice he made, but the person he was. He called it the Mamba mentality. But behind that name, behind the branding and the philosophy that would eventually fill books and inspire millions, was something devastatingly simple. He decided that he would outwork everyone, not occasionally. Not when it mattered, always, unconditionally, without exception. He began practicing at 4 a.m. and finishing before most of his teammates had eaten breakfast. He would get 500 shots up before practice began, not 50, not 100 and 500, so that when the official practice started, he was already sharper, already warmer, already further along in his day than the man standing next to him. He studied the game with the obsessive detail of a scientist. He watched film not just of his opponents but of himself, clinical, unsentimental, searching for every inefficiency, every weakness, every fraction of an inch where improvement was possible. When he tore his Achilles tendon in 2013, one of the most devastating injuries an athlete can suffer, a tear that ends careers and reshapes identities, he did not go to the locker room immediately. He went to the free throw line. He shot 2 free throws on a torn Achilles. He made both, and then he walked off the court. That is not motivation. You cannot be motivated through a torn Achilles tendon. That is something that lives deeper than motivation. That is something that is no longer a decision in the moment, because it was decided so long ago, so completely, so permanently, that it operates even when the conscious mind is overwhelmed by pain. That is discipline. And that turning point, that decision made in the dark of 1,000 early mornings, is what transformed a talented teenager who shot airballs in the playoffs into one of the most decorated and respected athletes in the history of sport. And now we come to the part that is about you, not about Kobe, not about basketball, about the life you are living and the life you are capable of living, and the distance between those two things that only one force can close. The first truth is this: motivation is a weather system. Discipline is a foundation. Motivation is real. It is powerful. It is the spark that starts the engine. The feeling you get after watching an inspiring video, after reading a great book, after having a conversation that makes you feel like your potential is limitless. That feeling is real, and it is useless. Not because it does not exist, but because it is unreliable. Motivation comes and goes with your mood, your sleep, your circumstances, your energy levels, the season of life you are in. Motivation is a fair weather companion. It shows up when things are good and disappears precisely when you need it most. Kobe Bryant was not always motivated. He said this himself. There were mornings, and even for him, even for the most disciplined athlete of his generation, when the bed was warm and the gym was cold and the body was tired, and the mind would rather have done anything else. The difference was not that he felt differently than you in those moments. The difference was that his behavior was not controlled by how he felt. He had built a system. a structure, a set of daily commitments that operated independent of his emotional weather, and that system, that foundation, held him steady through every season. Through injury and loss and public failure and the grinding invisible accumulation of a championship, career built one 4 a.m. morning at a time. Build the foundation. Stop waiting for the weather. The second truth is this. The repetitions nobody sees are the ones that matter most. We live in a world obsessed with results, with the highlight, with the finished product, with the moment of triumph that can be captured in an image and shared and admired. And because we see the highlights, we unconsciously believe that the highlights are where greatness lives. They are not. Greatness lives in the repetitions nobody films, in the 1,000th free throw of a Tuesday morning when nobody is in the building, in the extra film session at midnight when the rest of the team has gone home, in the small invisible, unspectacular decisions to do the work when doing the work produces no immediate reward. There is a concept in neuroscience called myelination. When you repeat a skill deeply, consistently, with focused attention, your brain wraps the neural pathway for that skill in a substance called myelin, which makes the pathway faster and more efficient. The more you repeat, the faster the pathway. The faster the pathway, the more automatic the skill becomes. The more automatic the skill, the more it belongs to you in the moment that matters. Every free throw Kobe shot at 4 a.m. was not practice for that specific morning. It was an investment in the version of himself that would step to the line in Game 7 of the NBA Finals with the world watching and his team needing him and feel nothing but certainty. The repetitions nobody sees are the ones that build the person everybody admires. Do the work in the dark. The light will come. The third truth is this. The standard you set for yourself in private determines the ceiling of what you can achieve in public. Kobe Bryant held himself to a standard that most professional athletes would have found unreasonable. He expected perfection not because he was arrogant, but because he understood something deeply true about how excellence works. You do not rise to the level of your aspirations. You fall to the level of your preparation. This means that what you do when no one is watching, when there is no external pressure, when the only accountability is the one you hold yourself to, that is not the warm-up for your real performance. That is your real performance. The game, the presentation, the meeting, the moment that matters, that is just the reveal of what you have already been building in private. He held himself to an extraordinary standard in private. And so in public, even under the most extraordinary pressure, even in the highest stakes moments that basketball can create, the gap between who he was and what the moment required was smaller than it was for anyone else on the floor. What is your private standard? What do you demand of yourself when the audience is only you? Because that standard is the architecture of everything you will ever build in full view of the world. Raise it, hold it, live inside it every day. The fourth truth is this. Discipline is not the absence of joy. It is the path to the deepest joy available to a human being. There is a lie that comfort tells us. It says that ease is pleasure, that rest is reward, that the life with the fewest demands is the life with the most happiness. Kobe Bryant's life was the living refutation of that lie. He was asked once whether he ever resented the sacrifices his discipline required, whether the 4 a.m. mornings and the relentless work and the standard that allowed for no real off-seasons, whether all of it ever felt like too much. He looked at the person asking the question with what those who witnessed it described as genuine confusion. Because for Kobe, the work was not the sacrifice. The work was the reward. The 4 a.m. mornings were not the cost of the championships. They were the thing he loved. The craft was the joy. The discipline was the expression of who he was, not the price he paid for who he wanted to become. When you find the thing you are willing to be disciplined about, when you find the craft that you love enough to show up for in the dark, before anyone is watching, without guarantee of reward, you have found the thing that will give your life its deepest meaning. That is what discipline unlocks. Not just success, not just achievement, but the profound satisfaction of a person who gave everything they had to the thing they cared about most. On January 26, 2020, a helicopter went down in the hills of Calabasas, California, and the world lost something irreplaceable. But here is what the world did not lose. Here is what cannot be taken by tragedy, by time, by anything that has happened or will happen in the years since that morning. The work remains. 20 years of 4 a.m. mornings remain. Every shot, every drill, every film session, every broken down and rebuilt skill, every standard held in private that produced a performance in public, all of it remains. Permanent. Indestructible. Part of the permanent record of what a human being can become when they decide, truly, completely, without reservation, to be disciplined. And here is what I need you to feel right now. Not just think, feel. Kobe Bryant did not know how much time he had. None of us do. He did not know that the mornings he was spending in the gym were finite. He did not know that the seasons were numbered. He did not know that the time would come, too soon, far too soon, when there would be no more mornings to work in. But because he was disciplined, because he showed up every single day as if the day mattered completely, he left nothing behind. He did not waste the time. He did not spend the mornings in comfort when they could have been spent in craft. He did not save his best self for some future moment that felt more worthy of his full effort. He showed up. Every day, fully, and when the time came, without warning, without preparation, without the chance to add one more morning to the total, everything he had was already given, already spent, already poured into the work with the kind of completeness that most people never achieve in a lifetime twice as long. That is what discipline truly means. Not the sacrifice of comfort for success, not the exchange of pleasure for achievement, but the decision, made fresh every single morning, that today matters, that this work matters, that the version of yourself you are building right now is worth every cold morning and every invisible repetition, and every moment of choosing the hard thing when the easy thing is right there. Kobe chose the hard thing. Every day. For 20 years. What will you choose? So here we are. At the end of this story and the beginning of yours, you have felt something watching this. I know you have. Not just admiration for a man who is gone. Something more personal than that. The recognition of your own potential. The awareness of the gap between what you are doing and what you are capable of doing. The quiet, uncomfortable knowledge that the discipline available to you right now, today, this morning, this hour, is being left on the table. That feeling is not guilt. That feeling is information. It is your own deeper self telling you that you have more to give. That the 4 a.m. version of you, the version that shows up before the world is watching, that does the work without waiting for the feeling, that holds the standard in private that produces the performance in public. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is a choice. Make it today. Not in a grand, dramatic, everything changes at once way. Make it in the smallest possible way that is still real. Pick one thing, one practice, one discipline, one daily commitment that your future self will be built on. And show up for it tomorrow morning. Not because you feel ready, not because you feel motivated, but because you have decided, and the morning after that, and the morning after that, until the decision becomes a practice, and the practice becomes a habit, and the habit becomes the person, and the person becomes something the world did not expect and could not fully explain, except to say that somewhere, in the dark, before anyone was watching, they were already working. That is the Mamba mentality. Stripped of the brand and the legacy and the mythology that surrounds a man who left us too soon. At its core, it is the simplest and most demanding idea in the world. Show up. Do the work. Hold the standard. Every day. Without waiting. Motivation will come and go. It will lift you and leave you. It will arrive with fanfare and disappear without notice. It will feel like everything in the moments it is present. And its absence will feel like failure when it is gone. But discipline, real discipline, the kind forged in 4 a.m. gyms and invisible repetitions and private standards held when no one would ever know, that does not leave. That compounds. That builds. That carries you through every season, every failure, every dark morning when the feeling is nowhere to be found. Discipline will take you where motivation never can. It will take you to the edge of what you thought was possible, and then past it. It will take you to the version of yourself that you have been carrying inside you, quietly, patiently, faithfully, since the moment you first understood that you were capable of something extraordinary. Kobe knew that. Now you do too. The gym is open. The morning is waiting. What are you going to do with it?